This morning, our chairman is out of town, and so we will move forward. Please note that decisions of this body may be appealed to Chancery Court. And first on our agenda is approval of the minutes. If you'll review for any corrections. And note that on page 4, staff has already pointed out that there is a typo. And under the second paragraph, first bullet should read as corrected, Sports Authority issues $65 million in revenue bonds. Are there any other corrections?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next order of business is the Executive Director's Report, to be given by Toby Thompson.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that very much. Tab 2 in your board packets, your rather large board packets, which began to, unfortunately, killing a few trees yesterday, includes summaries of all the documents included here. I'm reading down in tab 2 right now. Tab 3 is the Predators Arena update for October. Tab 5 is the Bridgestone Arena fiscal year 2013 audit. Tab 6 is, there's no tab 6, excuse me. Item 6 in the agenda is the Bridgestone Arena construction update. Number 7 is the LP Field update given by Walter Overton. 8 will be the ballpark update. It'll be a PowerPoint presentation. It's not in your board materials. Item 9 is the initial resolution, which will begin the actual discussion of the ballpark legislation that's before us today. And number 10 begins the rather lengthy piece of the board document. Exhibit A is the trust indenture. That will be number 11. Number 12 will be the bond purchase agreement. Number 13 will be the intergovernmental agreement. Number 14 will be the parking garage lease with the state of Tennessee. Number 14 will be the TIM lease. And number 15 will be the property swap description. 17 will be the development agreement. 18 will be the development description. And then finally, the preliminary official statement was, frankly, it was too lengthy to warrant putting in the material, so we've printed that out, and there's several copies here. It's a little over 120 pages.
Excuse me, Tony, what is that?
This is the preliminary official statement. It's just the bond
Preliminary official statement of?
that relates to the bonds. We distributed this to the board last Friday.
Oh, okay.
It was just
It was just
frankly too much to print for 15 packets.
me anyway. But you can do what you need to do with that.
The other thing that's on your desk is we've put a memo in front of several spots here that outlines the council action last night and the council votes that occurred. The third reading of the council was last night, so that is also on your desks. And then finally, just a couple other quick updates. The ice hockey facility will have Remick Moore come back before the board in January to update us on the developments, but in the executive director's report is a brief summary of that activity. And then also, as we look forward to the Music City Bowl and the New Year's Eve activities downtown, of course, Ole Miss and Georgia Tech will be the lineup. And Monica and I both met with several of the Metro departments and the Sports Council about the activities. We have a Titans game, a Predators game, and of course the Music City Bowl, all within a 3-day span. So quite an active sports period at the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Are there any questions for Toby? Okay. No action is required for the report, so we'll move on. Please welcome Sean Henry, President of the Nashville Predators and Powers Management, who will give the arena update.
Good morning. Good morning. Ask to be brief. I'm laughing at right now. No, it's never occurred in my life without Rob. And Toby, and everyone else that's asked me to. But October was a great month.
Yes.
You know, when I talk about bragging every month, it gets easier some months, and October was obviously an easy one. We had 22 events, 11 of which were sold out. Return of regular season hockey. Obviously, the team's not playing as well as we want them to right now. But if I told you in July that we're going to be without our 5 highest paid players for at least 5 games each, and then obviously Pekka for most of the season, and we'd be sitting at 500 right now, we would have laughed, we'd have to get committed, so we would be pretty happy about it. And that's where we're sitting right now. Last night we broke our 5-game losing streak on the road in New York, never an easy thing to do, and we're returning home for the next few, so hopefully that continues. But again, we're off just to a great start. We just finished a run of, I think it was 9 straight events in 9 days, or 8 days rather. Absolutely just having a fantastic year, building on everywhere we've been to date. Monday night, we had the most fun event that we've done so far this year. That was a party for our event staff, a Christmas party, something that we try to do every year, maybe twice a year. But it was a lot of fun. I want to thank Toby and Kim for coming out. Hopefully you had a good time. But more importantly, the people that choose to work for us, that leave their homes, the second job for them, second priority for them, they're the ones that make the arena what it is. And again, the arena was just nominated for the Arena of the Year for the 7th year in a row. It's because of those people. It's not really the events we do, it's the spirit that we have in the building. So thanks for coming out. For the month, again, you got the report. Michelle was making fun of me because the thesaurus only has so many words for incredible, awesome, phenomenal, beyond compare. What else was it? But it really was. You know, revenues are up in the month 120% over last year. Remember, last year was a record year. For the year, we're up 55%. Bottom line is up over 50 or 48%. And for the year, 35%. Again, that's over a record year. So things are going really, really well. If you have any questions about October or the year to date, I really would love to answer them and elongate this longer because I know you have nothing else to talk about. But if not, we'll just take your applause and thanks. And by the way, on the 30th, there's a home game as well with the Music City Bowl. So, and a sold-out concert the next night. So it'll be a lot of fun. What I want to do now is introduce Christina from Kraft Accounting, who's going to talk about our audit. And if you have any questions for her or Beth or Michelle or Kyle or myself, just ask them. But again, you know, thanks for coming the other night. It was a lot of fun. So,
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Hello. First, I want to start by saying thank you on behalf of Kraft CPAs for allowing us to be of service to you once again this year. We appreciate it and enjoy the opportunity to come out and audit the arena every year. But in your packet, we have the report to the board, which is what I'm going to focus on today. It's just a good summary, brief summary of the audit results. So we did perform an audit of the arena based on the operating agreement between Metro and the arena as of June 30th, 2013, as well as performed agreed-upon procedures that are required by your operating agreement. Our responsibilities as your auditor was described in our engagement letter, which is attached behind this report. Also, our audit procedures, we base our audit procedures on gaining an understanding of the internal controls at the organization, and then we look at those areas which we deem to be a little risky, and then we perform procedures to satisfy ourselves as far as the appropriateness of the transactions that occurred in those areas, and that's kind of how we approach the audit. As far as any changes in accounting policies, we did look at the new agreement that was entered into at the beginning of the year, and we didn't find any changes in accounting policies as a result of that agreement. So everything pretty much is done on the same basis as it was done in the prior years. We found no significant or any unusual transactions that we would need to report to you. On the second page of that communication, there's just one accounting estimate that we consider in your financial statements, and it is your allowance for doubtful accounts, which we have, it was estimated to be 0 at the end of the year, and we determined that to be reasonable based on past history. We did have a few audit adjustments, which are attached on page 4, but the net impact on those adjustments was just a decrease in expenses of approximately $66,000. So from what you're seeing on a monthly basis, you can have some good comfort that the numbers are fairly good that you're receiving and can base good decisions on. We had no disagreements with management, no significant issues or difficulties during the engagement. And we're pleased to report that we issued a clean opinion on the financial statements as of June 30th. Also attached behind here is significant communications between our firm and the arena, and that consists of the agreed upon procedures arrangement letter and representation letter, a draft of the representation letter that will be signed at the completion of the engagement, as well as the audit arrangement letter and representation letter. On page 5, we have a few recommendations, nothing new. Those are just some findings that we've had over the years. The same things, just about some specific documentation that's not included in the agreements, but everything's being done consistently as it has been in the prior years. So just wanted to point those things out to you.
Where are your recommendations? I'm not sure.
They're in this document. I'm not sure exactly where this document is. It may be page 5 of that document.
I see there.
I think that's what it is.
Behind tab 4.
Okay, it's in the second part.
I'm in 4.
Go to the back of this document. Look in the very back.
No,
Just
not
little
here.
pages. Here you go. This is it. Here's a page 5.
At the top of it, it says management recommendations.
We'll swap. Take this one. There's. See that?
If anybody has any specific questions, please ask those and can address those at this time.
Judge North, well, Margaret's still reading, and then we'll go to Helen. Go ahead.
Without reading and analyzing all of these things.
Sure.
Can you tell us, are there some recommendations, generally in audits, the auditor says, we need to do this, 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 and this, or here are things we need to look at. Can you just sort of tell us what those are without us having to try to?
That's
inform all this?
the only recommendation we wanted to make you aware of is what's on page 5 as far as the documentation. And I think that may be at the back of that, that report there, because that's the audit report itself. I think if you flip towards the back, it's the required communication from the audit. And it's just, there were some not defined percentages in the agreements as far as who gets what percentage of concession sales and merchandise sales. And that was the only thing that we found that we felt like needed to be reported to the board.
But haven't you found that before? Is that
Yes,
what you said?
yes.
So just kind of take us through kind of the history of you finding it before and now
Sure.
you're telling us again. Just make sure you clear that up for us.
Really, where this comment arises from is in the concession agreement. It really specifically mentions the percentage for catering, concessions, those type of food and beverage type things, as different sublets like the hot chocolate concession little kiosk, as the chocolate ice cream, and those little ones are added. They're just not specifically addressed in the agreement, and the agreement is not revised every year that Sports Service adds small pizza stands, what have you. So the percentages that are allocated kind of follow other areas that are similar. So if we add a pizza stand or an ice cream stand, those seem to be more in line with general concessions. So we use the percentage that is specified in the agreement for general concessions. But when they are doing their work, the agreement says, 45% for concessions, 25% for suites and premium seating. It doesn't specifically address ice cream and pizza, and that's kind of one of the things that's where one of those comments has arisen from.
Right.
Go ahead.
So as the auditor, independent auditor, is your conclusion that the percentages that are applied to these new things that are not specifically specified are reasonable and in keeping with the spirit of the other agreement? Is that
Yes.
what you're telling us?
Yes,
Okay.
and they're consistently being done for year to year, so you're using the same percentages consistently from year to year. Yes.
So do you plan to tell us this again next year?
We've been reporting this for multiple years.
Okay. So when you report it next year, could you just remind us of this conversation next year? Just be helpful.
Think Helen has a question?
Like, chance. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Christina. Is there a motion for approval of the audit?
I have one more question. Is there something we need to do so that you don't have to report this every year, saying this is something that raises a question? Should we
amend the agreement or do something so that every year you don't have to say the same thing and we say, well, is that okay? And you say yes, and they say, well, all right, let's kick the can down another year. If there's something that we can do so that you don't have to make that report, anytime there's a report of recommendations on an audit and a public body doesn't do anything about it, just the perception is not, I think is not good. I don't know how the rest of the people feel about it, but is there something we can do that'll take that recommendation off the board so that we don't have to worry about it next year?
I mean, we look at the agreement itself between, Metro and the Sports Authority, and then the concession agreement, so it would have to be an amendment too, because that's what we're looking at when we're looking for those percentages, so it would have to be, a modification or an amendment to that agreement. And I guess it could be, because most of these result from sublet sales.
Right, so we would just have to add something to the concession agreement that kind of left that for new areas that are added to fall within a particular range. It's between.
The arena and the concession people, or does it have to do with the agreement with Metro?
No, it is with the arena and our concessionaire.
And what we do is we could add a side letter from them every time we add one. I think that would clear it up. Because amending that agreement, I remember last time was so much fun for me. So we'll probably just do a side letter.
Well, so we don't need to amend the agreement between the Sports Authority or Metro and ours. The amendment that needs to be amended is the agreement between Powers and its concessionaires.
Yeah, but I think we'll be satisfied with a side letter on each one of these agreements. Because if we did amend the concession agreement between Powers and DNC, for example, then it would still take action here.
Could we request, would it be a good idea that we request that you send that letter so that every year the audit doesn't show this recommendation that no action's been taken?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Thank you. So I want to just go over the other recommendation regarding
License and use agreement, can you go through that again?
Sure. I believe that in the agreement with, I think, the hockey club and Metro, it states that the Predators are supposed to receive a portion of the merchandise sales just related to home game day sales, but in fact, they're receiving all of that instead of just the home game day sales. And I believe, that's the way it's consistently been done, and actually, Sports Service does not break out sales by day, so it's hard to determine what would be a home game day sale versus any other day. And we've had discussions about this. And
yeah, this is similar in that it has been an issue for previous years. It was something that we kind of had on our list when we were negotiating the new agreement last year, and it just got missed. In prior years, we've also talked about, one, because it's hard to identify daily what is being sold. If we were to break that down, we feel very confident that on the days that there were no home games, there would actually be an expense. So if we were to say the team receives funds only on home games and the Sports Authority or whomever else receives it on the non-home games, there's actually be a loss for those days. We can illustrate that because in our summer months, when there isn't as much hockey activity or no hockey activity in the building, the team actually pays the concessionaire for having the store open during those months. So again, it was something that I think needed to be clarified when we revised the agreement, but we failed to do that. And that is a discussion we've had in the past about how we could illustrate that on non-home games, there would actually be a loss in the store.
So the recommendation is that we be provided written documentation?
Same type of situation,
Right.
probably.
And, I spoke to Bob Lackey about this a couple weeks ago when we were reviewing the audit and these comments, and, he agreed it was an oversight on all of our parts to make the appropriate correction in the last negotiation. So as far as that goes, in a side letter, I don't know, we'll have to talk about, the best way to do that to eliminate this recommendation going forward.
Let me ask the auditor, a signed letter between Metro Legal
and Powers solve this problem so that this recommendation gets taken off. Madam Chair, I suggest that we ask our legal department to draft such a letter and send it, or Powers draft such a letter and send it. Let's get this recommendation off. So, okay, thank you.
And just, it's not significant differences here, I don't believe, so that's why we haven't raised it to be a larger issue than what we have.
I think our interest is just to have
Sure.
a clean audit so that it cannot later be said after we're dead and gone that we had these recommendations year after year and never did anything about it.
These are the only two recommendations you got, otherwise they're physically completely clean up. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Did I move approval?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Bridgestone Arena South Entrance construction update. Please welcome back Patrick Holcomb from the Convention Center Authority.
Morning, how are y'all doing? Thank you for having me. I'm going to give you a brief update on the south entrance renovations to the arena. I'll start with saying we have 8 working days until the end of fall. If you were outside this morning, as all of us were, it definitely doesn't still feel like fall, but as Sean said from the beginning, we're going to finish in fall. So on the 14th, this guy, 13th, I didn't have another year. The 20th, this coming Friday, will be officially the end of fall. That's what we had our completion date set at. We've had conversations with the city on achieving a temporary CO. Like I said last time, the reason to be a temporary is due to the team stores, the retail, some of the garage mesh that was added due to the budget coming in under the funds that were allotted. So that portion will carry on past the 20th, but for all intents and purposes of utilizing that south entrance, utilizing the plaza, that's going to fall towards next Friday, the 20th. So from a scheduling standpoint, everything's going like we want it to go. From a budget standpoint, it's probably going arguably better than we had thought it would go. That's why you're seeing the mesh getting added to the garage on that cladding. You've also seen where we added in cleaning the entire building to the budget. So from that standpoint, that's going very, very well. A large part of the reason why this project seems to be gone very smoothly is Sean Henry and his staff. They've been great to work with. To come into somebody else's house and basically kind of tear the backside of it off and interrupt them with all the events they're doing, they've really been very, very good to work with. So I'd like to thank those guys. And just so you guys know, the people that y'all have working for you are doing a tremendous job. So we thank you for that because it's made our job a lot easier. Do you guys have any questions specific to the arena? Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. Next up, Walter Overton will provide us with the Titans and LP Field update.
Thank you. I don't have to be told twice to be brief, Toby. So, and having followed Mr. Underwood with his very thick reports, I certainly don't mind. I don't think you guys mind my being brief as well. I do want to tell you that Don wanted to be here, but he had a prior engagement and said to tell me to wish you guys hello and a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. We did not send out any monthly reports because nothing has changed. We have not had a home game since our last meeting, so there's no report. There's no changes. There's no updates in terms of our monthly report. We do have a game this Sunday with the Cardinals. We're certainly hoping and praying that we'll play a lot better and win at home. Our next game is with the Texans, which is the 29th. That will be our last home game. Then that will follow the Music City Bowl will follow that, which it seems like that is a very exciting matchup with Georgia Tech and Ole Miss. Certainly, I hope that the city will be excited about all the fans that will be in the city to enjoy a long weekend. Our next major event will be the Country Music Festival, which will be the second weekend in June, which is always a signature event and a record-setting event, which it has been each and every year. We're also happy to report that August 19th, we'll have One Direction. Ticket sales have been going very well, so we're very excited about that and looking forward to having that concert. Are there any questions? Very brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Next on the agenda is the ballpark update. Please welcome our Finance Director, Rich Riebling, and Ron Goebel of Goebel Hayes Partners.
Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all today? It's cold out there. Appreciate you coming this morning. Lots happened since we made a little report to all of you. I can't remember when it was now, a few weeks ago on that. As you may have seen in the paper, Council did have a special meeting last night and overwhelmingly voted support for the project, to give you authorization to go forward with it. So we have moved diligently through this and hope that you will see forth to give your approval later this morning. I thought before we get into the details of any questions about the agreements and such, I wanted to get Ron Goebel up here to just kind of walk you through a few slides to kind of show you how the ballpark design is sort of progressing. We made this presentation to the state on Monday, and we'll do it again next Monday at the Executive Subcommittee of the Building Commission. If you read the agreements, you'll see that the state, one of the conditions of the state is they want to sign off on the design of the ballpark to make sure that it's consistent with all their plans for that area, and I don't see any issues there. It's just more of a matter of kind of going through those steps, and I thought you ought to get to see that. I mean, it's going to be your ballpark, and so Ron, why don't you kind of walk them through that, and then we can get into the details.
Great. Thanks, Rich. We're really trying to, the design of the building is beginning to come together. We've had several meetings with Populous, the architect of the ballpark, who we mentioned the last time has designed 70 to 80% of the ballparks around the country. And the sounds, and gotten a lot of input. This is the first phase, but it's really beginning to take shape as a structure. I'm going to remind everybody real quick of the layout over here. This is 5th Avenue here. This is 3rd right there. And we're going to center the ballpark in this 2-block section. It's going to be surrounded by the Greenway to the south. This is where the new state parking garage is going to be. This building right here and these buildings right here will be developed by the Sounds as part of their private agreement or the Sounds Development Group. And so what we've got is this section right here in the middle and the Greenway. This is the main level of the ballpark. Now to remind everybody, the field is recessed about 12 feet, 13 feet. And at field level, we'll have dugouts, we'll have, out in the outfield, we'll have some services and utilities and storage. And then we'll have some behind home plate, we're looking at putting in some more suites that would be at field level. All that is still technically, we're still trying to figure that out. That's at the main level, the formal entry is going to be off of Jackson Street at the corner of Jackson and 4th. That'll be right in this area. And then you'll come into a concourse, and unlike old stadiums and ballparks, you'll be able to see into the field immediately. All of this on this side right here, since it's all recessed, all of that's open. So if you're walking along, going to the concession stands or the restrooms, you can see what's going on and stay connected to the game. We'll have, to get them up above floodplain and other things, we'll have all the sounds in the visitors' dressing rooms, which will be in this area, and a lot of concessions and other things will be at this level. And then the level above this will be where all the suites are. We'll have a club level right in here. We have, of course, the press box and those kind of things. And then the Sounds administrative offices will be in that corner right there. So again, this is the first pass at this layout. I'm sure it'll be modified over a period of time, but this is how it's coming together. I want to remind everybody that since all this is recessed, from this point on, other than lights, from this point north is the buildings that you'll see. Everything below that is just site level and development and those kind of things. This is kind of hard to see here, but this is the elevation along Jackson Street. Again, it's essentially a very tall two-story building. It's going to be about the equivalent of a four-story building across this level here. This is a section through the through the ballpark looking north. This is along 3rd Avenue. If the top one, if you don't have the Sounds development, it will be between the street and there, and then on the west side, generally until that property over there is developed sometime in the future, you'll be able to see the ballpark from here. This is a section of it.
Could you just stop a minute?
Sure.
Could you go back to the slides, that couple back, and just make sure, tell us about the lights and where they are again?
The lights of the ballpark?
Lights, like the lighting.
The lighting, I don't know exactly. I don't have all the exact spots, but there'll be,
the next one.
there'll be lighting right
Like
there.
Which one going north? Are the lights facing
This
north?
is-
Or are they going?
This is on top of the building facing south,
Okay.
right here. And then there'll be, I think 4 or 5, I'm not totally sure we've got it laid out exactly, 4 or 5 light poles out in the outfield. So you're going to have, on the grandstand, you're going to have banks of lights looking down into the field facing south, and then there'll be kind of a minimal number of poles out there surrounding the outfield.
Okay.
That's your question? Sure. Here again, this is kind of showing the same thing. This is a section through right at home plate, looking right in the main entrance. This is the concourse area. Like I said, you'll be able to see the field. We're looking at field level suites. They've done this in several ballparks. They're very popular. That's so that these suite people can be right behind home plate and literally at the catcher's eye. You're at that same level and you can see those pitches and see all the curves and things that they do. But this is a view from the greenway. Most people are going to come from the parking garage, so this is the entrance they're going to see, and they're going to probably enter the ballpark around this part. Greenway is going to be well developed. We're still working on the design of that, and then you'll be able to see down into it. This is a view from the new State Library and Archives building. The state's very interested in what that's going to look like. This is going to be the materials that we're choosing for the building are going to be similar and have a similar feel, kind of a warm gray. The Library and Archives building is going to be cut limestone. We don't think we have that in the budget, but we do intend to complement what they're doing and make it a similar material. So the state seems to be very satisfied and appreciate that. This is looking along Jackson Street, which, like I said, that's going to be the formal entrance. This is going to be the retail store right in here. And this is out in right field looking back toward the grandstands. This is in left field looking back at it. We'll have the ability to, if we have a big event for something and we need to bring in temporary seating, we can add bleachers up in this area where I'm standing there. This is a home plate looking back at the city and the view. And the parking garage is right in here, and this is the Sounds development right there. And this is the overall view right there. So this is looking back downtown. Here's the Sounds development right here. This is going to be the new State Museum. It's planned for the future on that site. And essentially this right here is the structures that you'll be seeing at that point. So that's kind of a high overview.
Obviously, Ron will be able to ask any questions. We have just introduced a few other people that are here this morning. Obviously, subject to your approval, we are prepared to go out and get a construction manager on board, as well as start the financing later today. We got Wayne Placide is with, I think Wayne you've met before. Wayne is with First Southwest. Wayne is the city's financial advisor on all bond transactions, so Wayne's in town today to help work with the bond sale. Hugh Tanner is with Raymond James. Used to be the firm's names have changed. Raymond James. I say that right? Raymond James. Hugh Tanner's worked on some of the other Sports Authority issues, and his firm is going to be the lead manager on the selling of the bonds. And, of course, Jeff Oldham and Lillian Blackshear with Bass Berry, who are the city's bond counsel, are also here today in case there's any. Want to make sure we had everybody here in case there's any questions that any member may have. But with that, I think we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have. But would obviously urge you and respectfully hope that you will approve what is before you today, and we can get started. We are shortlisted construction management firms. The proposals are due sometime later this week, and they hope to select a construction manager before the end of the year, get them started. With a little bit of luck, the property conveyance happened. We would be on the site in January, digging a few holes and starting to move some dirt. Clearly the first quarter of next year, in order to keep it on track and on schedule to open for opening day of April 2015. I also should say that I neglected to say that John Triggs is here representing MFP. MFP, I always get additional, and the Sounds. That's the ownership of the Sounds. Mr. Ward, one of the owners, could not be here. There's a baseball meeting going on, and sort of obligated to be at those meetings as a team owner. But John is here in case there's any specific questions directly related to the team and their commitment to Nashville. And I think that's everybody that I need to introduce, other than Metro Lawyers.
I'd like to acknowledge that Council Lady Erica Gilmore joined us, and she's been very involved in this process. So thank you for coming this morning. And I believe, Coach.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to say, I'm for this project 100%, but a young man named Butch McCord, who passed about 2 years ago, played in the Old Negro League and played at TSU, and he was a Nashvilleian. I know he has to be smiling with today because he'd have been down there for every shovel of dirt that you turned, he'd have been right there supervising. Him and a fellow named Zapp. And Gilmore's father played baseball also. So I know, well, this is a historical time, but for those individuals that played in the Old Negro League here in the 40s and 50s.
And clearly, we not decided yet, but we will have something there to honor that in the ultimate and the final plans, because again, one of the great things about this project, a lot of great things about this project, but the historical significance of it is returning baseball to its roots, as well as the redevelopment opportunities along Jefferson Street are sort of. Forget the baseball part of it for a minute, but just talk about the historical and the significance of that. We think are just truly amazing. So with that, it's turned back to, we're here to answer any questions and anything that you may have. Appreciate all your time.
Judge North.
I recognize that our function is
not to make policy or to decide whether something is, a particular way of doing something is wise or not wise. But I think our main concern from the Sports Authority standpoint is the administration of this lease over the next 30 years, which will be in part our responsibility. And in looking at some of the other structures that we have that function on, one area that I'm a little concerned about, the capital improvement. We've had some difficulty with the Titans situation in defining what is capital and what is maintenance, and in funding those necessary periodic capital improvements that have to be made. And so in the Titans situation, from the very beginning, there was a fund, I think $1 million a year, that was to go toward capital, and that turned out not to be enough, and we instituted the seat tax in order to fund that. And I'd like you just to explain to us what are the provisions for funding the capital improvements, and do we define, one of the problems in the Titan situation is capital was defined as any expenditure over $10,000, whether it was capital or not, and that has caused us some difficulty and some problem. And so number one, is capital improvement clearly defined in the lease? And is there a funding mechanism so that those capital needs can be met as the lease goes on?
Thank you. I don't have, Margaret, you may want to look at up the definition. I think that generally speaking, I think one thing to say is this is obviously a very small structure compared to the stadium, so it's going to have much less needs from a dollar perspective than obviously a stadium would. You know, essentially what we're looking at for the city's commitment is preservation of our investment in the stadium, is what our responsibility is, to make sure it doesn't go bad. And that's roof, sort of structure, you know, big items like that. The lease calls for, and Margaret, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, the lease calls for the day-to-day operation and maintenance of it to all be the responsibility of the town. So keeping it up to date, and they have a commitment, obligation to keep it up to certain levels, just as we have an obligation to keep it up to AAA, sort of AAA levels. So I think it's a little clear in this agreement. I think that there is always there's always you know, lawyers would interpret language differently, and I think there's always going to be a potential for some dispute down the road. I don't think you can draw anything out that would completely prevent that from happening. I think we've tried to mitigate that by what we've drawn. And you want to add anything to that?
Well, Section 6 of the team lease defines the authority's obligations, and it defines capital expenditures as classified as such in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles, including all capital expenditures necessary to keep the premises in good condition and comply with league standards. It further goes on to talk about what Rich just stated, that the repair, maintenance, replacement of the ballpark roof, foundation, structural members of the walls, the building lights, and operating systems in the grandstands would be considered capital improvements.
The fact that it requires the GAP standards as to what is capital and what is maintenance, I think is good. I
think it ties it down a little bit more. Now, the rest of you, I'm sorry, I was going to say.
The other question is, what is the funding source? I mean, when these seats wear out, as they will, probably after maybe, 10 years of
I mean, I think
use, they'll have to be replaced, and that's a big expense.
So at some point down, obviously, much more limited seats than in LP Field and all that. I think that there is not one in place, to be candid. I mean, I think the obligation is the city's obligation. So the city's going to have to make arrangements to provide that. I think basically the plan calls for, it's a new building, everything will be under warranty initially for a period of time. So I think we're covered for at least the initial period because of the warranty overall on all the conditions. I think the way the lease spells out is starting in the 7th year, that if there's starting to be some capital needs, the Sounds are to make a report to the Sports Authority that says we think X, Y, and Z needs to get fixed. I think the current document says you have 30 days to review that. We talked earlier with the Sounds, and I think it's 30 days or at the next regular meeting of the authority, just to give us, in case there's not a meeting, we can make that minor change there. They're comfortable with that. I think that, you know, to tell you there's a mechanism in place, there isn't one right now. It's the city's obligation, and the city's going to have to figure that out down the road. And I think in talking with them, I think one of the options down the road could be, you know, some kind of C-tax if this is what direction the city wants to go. But again, it's down the road, and we thought it was, you know, since we don't know what it's going to be, rather than to build in a mechanism, a funding mechanism now, everybody wanted to get the building, get it moving and operating, and then we'll deal with that issue later, just to be candid.
Can I follow up just very briefly? Another problem that we've run into with previous leases and on other buildings is that sometimes the NHL or the NFL will say, we require certain changes, and some of those changes are very, very expensive. And AAA baseball might come up and do the very same thing. It puts us in the situation of having to fund some expensive security measure or something that we have no money for and no mechanism, and sometimes those things hit all of a sudden, and that's one of the things
I think that's a legitimate concern, and I think, Ian, it's going to be something we'll have to address at that time, whoever is in all these positions. You know, I know we had to do security, and we've had to do the dasher board, I think, at the hockey, at the Bridgestone. You know, I don't, I don't know, I don't think AAA, I think baseball's been around a long time. I can't envision, but they could be something. They could require all the walls to be in the outfield to be more flexible or something, and you got to tear down the walls. I mean, all that is conceivable, but because we do have a requirement that we have to meet AAA baseball standards. So if that's a condition that's imposed, we're going to have to figure that out and fund it at that time. You're right.
Thank you, Judge.
Well, I had some of the same questions, and I just want to follow up that I think in an earlier agreement, maybe with the Titans, there couldn't be a seat user fee imposed, but I think this agreement does not.
It's silent on it.
It's silent on that.
Yeah.
And so is it your understanding that we could impose that without changing this agreement if the council did it later?
There's some question as to whether it would require state legislation or not, and I don't know if we've ever completely answered that question. But it could require that we have to get some enabling legislation through the legislature that would allow us to do such, which, again, if that's the case, once we come to that legal determination, we can start on that process sooner rather than later, so it's in place, and then it's just a matter of negotiations with the sounds. I mean, again, it's everybody's being very reasonable today, which doesn't mean everybody's going to be very reasonable forever. I mean, that's just, we all know that. But, I guess we're going into this with some degree of good faith, and that's just, the nature of it.
I guess so you don't know whether or not we would have to negotiate an agreement with them again about that. I mean, that's just up in the air right now.
I think it's up in the air, yeah. I mean, I would hope that we would all be in agreement on that at the point in time, but there's no, I sense that since it's our building, we probably would have the right to impose something if we have, assuming the legislation was in place. But
yeah.
Again,
But I understand. I had another question about the authority using the parking rights. Do we have it for 20 events or 10 events?
10.
Okay, so who has the other 10?
Presumably the sounds.
The sounds, yeah.
Okay, all right. So there can be 20 civic events that are not baseball, obviously, events. But the authority gets 10 and the sounds get 10.
Just for the garage use.
For the
It only
garage.
deals with the garage use, not the use of the facility.
Okay.
There's no limit on the use of the facility. We argued, kind of negotiated back and forth, decided, everybody wants this facility to use, let's just take out any kind of arbitrary number.
Gotcha.
And so now it's simply that if somebody wants to use the facility, the sports authority would have to, give permission just like you would.
Okay, I didn't understand that. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda then is we need to actually vote on the ballpark initial resolution.
I move approval of the initial resolution.
I second.
All in favor, say
Wait,
aye.
Madam Chair, I just need to recuse myself because I'm counsel with MDHA on this vote.
Thank you. Please note the recusal. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the ballpark bond resolution. And I know there are a number of exhibits as a part of this. Are there any questions? Legal can provide a brief explanation if necessary.
I just want to be sure that the legal department, the finance department, the bond council, everybody signed off on this, and you recommend that we approve this, right?
We have all spent a large amount of time working on these documents, and yes, they are approved. If you want, I can give a brief explanation of what the bond resolution is going to do, what the function of it is. If the board would like that, I will be happy to do it. The bond resolution is a document of the board that will approve the issuance and the sale of the bonds. It's going to pledge specific revenues to the repayment of the bonds. And it's going to approve in the form certain attendant documents, which you have received in tabs, in several tabs in your board materials. And it approves future transactions necessary for the bonds and the construction of the facility. And it also includes a covenant to make a continuing disclosure of any events that may happen that could affect the bonds. So the documents that you will be approving in the form of today, excuse me, are the trust indenture, you'll be approving the bond purchase agreement, the intergovernmental agreement, the parking lease with the state, the team lease with the Sounds, and the development agreement with the Sounds. You'll also be, this bond resolution also will be ratifying the preliminary official statement and authorizing the completion of that document to make an official statement. This bond resolution, well, through the intergovernmental agreement, the board is also authorized to enter into a loan with MBHA. And I believe I think that covers.
I think also the
Well, and then
swap.
there's the property swap. There is the board will be authorizing the chair to negotiate and execute an agreement with the Sounds to swap a certain portion of property so that they can have the portion that they want to do their development on, and then the Sports Authority will have a portion of that property on which to construct the facility.
Judge North?
I don't even pretend to understand everything that you've just said. But as our legal counsel, and I think Bass, Berry and Sims is here as our bond counsel, we've got the Director of Finance here, and all of you recommend the passage of this and represent that you have studied this and this is the fiscally responsible and reasonable thing for us to do, and you're making that recommendation.
I'm not sure that the lawyers are making all of that. I think the lawyers are going to tell you that it's legal and that everything is fine for Metro side. I will tell you from a fiscal standpoint, unless Mr. Oldham would like to make a comment on the fiscal issues. I think so. I think so.
I'm trying to put them on the record.
I understand.
Put on the record. I think they ought to be put on the record.
I like being on the record. It seems like I get on the record a lot. Coach Temple commented that he was surprised I didn't have a TV camera following behind me because he thinks I carry one with me everywhere I go. And it's not by plan, I tell you, but it seems to work that way. Clearly, we, the administration, Mayor Down, are committed to this project and feel very strongly that what we have put here together is a very good structure of a deal for the city. There's not a perfect deal. Obviously, there's things we prefer and not prefer, but in essence of coming up with a project that essentially pays for itself from the development and the other payments. When we started on this road, my instructions were from the mayor is a ballpark is not a necessity. It would be nice, and I'd like to see it happen, but only if it makes sense for the city and for the taxpayers. And so between what we've put together through negotiations with the various private parties in the state, we think we have accomplished that. We think it's going to have minimal impact to the city's operating budget in terms of a cost to pay for the debt service on the bonds, because the development and the payment from the Sounds, the lease, the sales tax rebate are going to pay for the great portion of the debt service on the project. And so that coupled with historical returning to baseball roots, and I think, not to be understated but to see a $150 million development on Jefferson Street, I think is historic and is just an extra bonus to this whole project. So I would say that we are heartily in favor of it and would urge your approval.
Based on the recommendation of the Finance Department and the administration and the overwhelming approval of the Metro Council, all of whom either are elected or work for elected officials, I move that we approve. And can we approve this just in bulk? Do we need to go through every one of these?
Procedurally, we're voting on all
Resolution.
exhibits at one time in the ballpark resolutions.
All right, I move we approve all of them.
The bond resolution.
Amen.
And since they're all of the documents, then I'll need to recuse myself from this vote too. So
noted.
separate them out.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The final thing on our agenda is the 2014 meeting calendar. Toby, I think you have a couple
Just a quick note, when we did the board survey a little bit back, people indicated, substantially indicated that Thursday was the preferable day, and the only request that was really kind of made by the majority of folks was to move it back 30 minutes just to accommodate traffic for people who were coming in from areas a little further out of the downtown core. So the calendar before you reflects Thursdays on the third Thursday of the month.
The tab being where?
I'm sorry, it's the very last tab.
The last page of the...
Very last
Of
page.
the tree you have.
The third Thursday of the month at 8:30. On a monthly basis.
Sounds good. Are we going to have a meeting in January?
We do.
January 16th.
All the meeting dates are not last.
January 16th,
Sorry,
2014 is the day.
Can we leave this?
Okay, great. So do we have a motion to set the calendar for 2014? You have a motion?
Still.
Yeah, so move, I'm sorry.
You have a second?
I second.
All right, motion to approve the calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, calendar's approved.
I'd just like to say one thing, and that is thank you to the staff. I know this has been such a hectic time, the past 30 days, and for the way you communicated with us and let us know what was going on. I really think it was just an extraordinary effort on your part.
Well, thank you.
And I want to
Thanks
thank
for y'all's
you for the
patience, because that was-
communication. I think it's been great.
A lot of moving parts.
Did a great job, yes.
Well, happy holidays to everyone, and seeing no other business, move to adjourn.
I know, but thank you.
Good job, Madam
More than his
Secretary.
wife.